In this video, we're going to be discussing Rabbi Chaim Vital, one of the great Kabbalists of the 16th century. He was born in the year 1543. His father was a sofer, a scribe. The family originally came from Calabria, Italy, so they were Italian Jews, and he was born, I believe, in Israel. It's the Rabbi Yosef Karo, the great Kabbalist, and mainly known for his legal works, as we've discussed in previous videos. He said the entire world is in existence because of Rabbi Yosef, the father of Rabbi Chaim Vital's tefillin. That his tefillin were very well made and sought after by many. And he started getting involved in publicly in Torah study at the age of 20. He began his writing career, which would define him, as we'll see momentarily. At age 26, he was already writing a commentary on the Zohar. At the age of 27, after he was getting involved in Kabbalistic things, and his main teacher was the Ramak, the author of the Pardes, as we discussed in a previous video. The Arizal arrives from Egypt, and he becomes attracted to the Arizal after the passing of the Pardes of the Ramak by Moshe Cordovero, and he starts to study by the Arizal. And he is totally overwhelmed by the teachings of the Ari, and to the point where many of them are in contradictory or different, I should say, than the teachings of his previous master, the Rabbi Moshe Cordovero. And he has this dream, and in the dream, he has this conversation with Rabbi Moshe Cordovero. Rabbi Moshe Cordovero appears to him, and he asks him, what is the proper way? Is it the way that you taught us, or is it the way that the Arizal is teaching us now? And Rabbi Moshe Cordovero responds to him that in heaven they teach according to the way of the Arizal. And my way is kind of on a lower level. The Arizal is more a deeper level, and that's how they teach it in heaven. And therefore you should study by him. However, he had a hard time understanding, and the Arizal, apparently one of the reasons he had come from Egypt was that he saw that Rabbi Chaim Vital was destined to be his greatest student. And he takes him to the Kinneret and on one Saturday night, and he gives him a cup of water. I believe we discussed this in a previous video, this story. And he says that on Saturday night, the well of Miriam is able to be accessed, and he drinks from it, and his mind is opened up, and he's able to understand the teachings of the Arizal. The Arizal told him he was the only one allowed to write his teachings, to write down his teachings. The Arizal himself, as we explained previously, did not write down his own teachings. He relied on his students, but he said the only one who had permission to write down was Rabbi Chaim Vital. He was given this holy task, and those writings are found in Eitz Chaim and Pre-Eitz Chaim. And as we discussed previously, there's debate amongst the Kabbalists whether or not you can take the writings of the other students of the Arizal very seriously, and the consensus amongst the Hasidic movement was that we can use the writings of these other Kabbalists. The Rabbi Chaim Vital, again, like we said, he was the prize student of the Arizal, and the Arizal, however, was only active for about 2 years, and then he passed away. And at that point, the Rabbi Chaim Vital was seen as his very obviously as his successor. He himself, besides his recording of the writings of his master, he also wrote a lot of his own. He wrote on, I'm not going to go through every single book he wrote, there are dozens and dozens, but he wrote on Kabbalah, as we discussed. He wrote on Teshuvos, Halachic Responsa. He wrote on the Talmud. He wrote, there's books of his sermons that he wrote down. There's a book of ethics and conduct of the Kabbalists that he suggested. Kavanas, which are deep meditative intentions during the prayers. He wrote poems. He wrote on prayer. And of course, his personal magnum opus of his own writings is the Shmona Sha'arim. It's called the 8 Gates, and it's essentially 8 books in 8 different books, and this long treatise. And again, in itself is a great Kabbalistic work in its own right. In the year 1587, he moves to Jerusalem. He's appointed as the head of the court in Jerusalem, and later in 1594, he moved to Damascus, where he spends most rest of his life. and he passes away there in 1620. He asked that after his passing, he be buried with all of his own writings, and they were buried with him. And then, so a few students at this later point did what's called a Shelas Chalom. It's a Kabbalistic practice, which essentially you write certain Kabbalistic things in a question on a piece of parchment. You put it under your pillow, and during the night you have a dream or revelation of what is the proper thing to do. They did this, asking to have permission to dig up these manuscripts, which they did, and they received permission during this process, and they extracted these things. Now, what ends up happening is these writings that were extracted from burial were called the Madura Basra, the second version, and later some other students worked on these things and kind of made a synthesis of the original version and the later version, and kind of rewrote it, put them together. There's other stories about his practice of Kabbalah. There's a story that this woman, he was married, I think, twice or maybe even 3 times. There was a woman who had this dream that she should move to Damascus, and she moves there, and that's where she marries Rabbi Chaim Vital. So obviously there was that Kabbalistic idea over there, and they had children together in Damascus. So in the end, Rabbi Chaim Vital's legacy is he's mainly known for his being the transcriber of the Arizal's Torah, the Arizal's Kabbalistic writings, teachings, and really so important because that's how they're transmitted to the next generation. And till today, the most authoritative Kabbalah amongst most Kabbalists is Lurianic Kabbalah. So it's super, super important person in this transmission of Kabbalah, as well as being a great Kabbalist in his own right. Thank you very much for joining, and we'll see you in the next video.